Hello and welcome. It is Tuesday night and it's SNL F1 Podcast Season Preview 20. Time we've done this, so welcome. Nobody's here, so that is a... Well, somebody's here. Somebody's joined us. Welcome to the chat. Like, share and subscribe, all of that jazz, because this is a live podcast previewing F1 2022, and I am not alone. Oh, that person's disappeared. We've lost them. We've only got one person back, and that is me, maybe. But, oh, Sarlac's here. Good evening, Sarlac. I am not alone in my ramblings. I am joined by our latest champion in SNL. He is Season 4 Formula X champion. It's SNL Wolfbane. Hello, SNL Wolfbane.
Hello, Jam.
Hello. We've gone full gamer tag as well. So secret identities are being kept. So we might one day, due to popular demand, reveal our secret names, but right now it is SNL Jam and SNL Wolfbane. We were going to be joined with Season 3 champion Matt Psycho, but he's unavailable tonight. Episode, if there is a second episode, next week to review the Bahrain Grand Prix that is happening this Sunday. And before we begin, Wolfbane, well done on winning the championship for Aston Martin.
Thank you very much.
How's it feel to be a fellow champion in SNL?
It feels like it's a long time coming. I've had a couple of difficult seasons. Touring cars obviously was, interesting. Had a lot of mistakes in touring cars, and Season 3 of Formula X I had a chance, but various issues meant I missed a couple races, and combined with bad timing of missing races, I just lost a whole heap of points. Feels good.
Feels good.
Feels really good.
It always feels good winning a title, and I can say that having won that touring car title off you just before Christmas. That made my Christmas. Anyway, we're not here to talk about SNL, but if you do not know about SNL, we are a Gran Turismo sports... well, no, not a Gran Turismo Sports Racing League anymore. A GT7 Racing League. Some good battles, says Sarlac, as well. Some good battles in touring cars as well. Yep, Sarlac, one of our drivers in SNL. We are a GT7 League now. We've just finished on GT Sports, and you can find us on Discord. We'll pop some information in the description and bits and pieces. But we're here to talk about Formula One. So, to start off with then, how long have you been following Formula One? And...
sorry.
No, that's okay. You could jump in. Off you go.
I'm a lot younger than a lot of people in SNL, but I've been following F1 since... I'm going to make an educated guess and say 2007. That's when I properly start remembering watching F1. I've only really started to properly watch it in the last 3 or 4 years.
So sort of the introduction of Sir Lewis Hamilton in 2007 at McLaren is sort of the beginning of your
very much
memories.
So.
Which
Yes,
I mean, it was a huge boom when Hamilton joined F1, and his dominance as well over the past 7-8 years now. Getting on for 2014 first title with Mercedes, so 8 seasons, nearly 9, including this one. It's so you've basically been in this era that everybody lambasts and says it's no good, and that basically is any era ever when it's in the current.
Yeah, everyone's always slating F1 these days. It's very different to what it used to be. But it's still good. Last season was one of the best seasons we have had in years, and I think most people will agree with that, because it wasn't one team dominating, and there was a lot of really interesting battles down the grid, like McLaren and Ferrari all season. That was my highlight of the season last year.
Well, I was going to say last season, to be honest, I think is probably the best that there ever has been. And I mean,
Wow.
I've been watching Formula One religiously since 1998. But probably before then, I am aware of Mansell and Senna, and I remember playing with toy cars then. So, yes, I think last season was the best ever in all my years of watching it, and that's not just because of the Ferrari and McLaren battle. It's because of the title battle. We won't talk about what happened in the final race. That's been analysed to death. Yeah, but you know, each of those drivers, Hamilton and Verstappen, both deserve that title, and we have a world champion. He's using the number 1, which personally I love to see. So yeah, we're here for 2022 with brand new regulations, so nobody really knows what's going to happen, let alone 2 random people in the UK streaming from the spare rooms / bedrooms. I mean, if you've come for expert analysis, maybe go to the race. Go to the race.com or somewhere like that, because they'll actually back it up with hard facts. We're more the WTF1 style, where we have our opinions. We're sharing it with you lot. If you've got any opinions as well, you want to chat to us, pop it into there. For me, Sarlek says there were Alonso unfortunately lost the lead championship to Hamilton. It's dropped off. Hold on, Sarlek, let me load up everything. We are live. Lead the championship to Hamilton at Yas Marina. First time using one as champion since Vettel in 2013, I think. Incredibly, Pat, yes, that is the first time the number 1 will be seen in F1 since Vettel used it in 2013, which is...
I don't know if Hamilton's ever used the number 1.
He's used it in practice sessions. He's used it as like little gimmicky sort of practice sessions when he's won the championship prior to the end of the season. But I mean, 2009 he used it because that was part of the regulations. And he didn't have a very good year that season, although he did win races in that dog of a car. Anyway, let's talk about... We've talked about when we started watching Formula One, so for you it's a more recent time. So I'm going to be interested, actually, to find out who your favourite driver of all time is.
Jenson Button.
Oh, lovely pick. Lovely pick. That is one of my favourite drivers of all time. Why Jenson Button, Wolfbane?
He just seems like such a nice guy. Like, there's a lot of the F1 drivers that are... Button just always seems more genuine. And he's always been... I mean, he was... I'm going to say he was at McLaren with Hamilton when I started watching. But I can't remember if he was. But that's the first driver pairing I remember.
Mm-hmm. So Hamilton and Button were 2010 to 2012. So yes.
Really?
Oh yes. Ooh.
I definitely... Button's championship in 2009 was brilliant. It was really the first sign of me really liking him as a driver. He's just always been my favourite driver.
For me, Jenson always has oozed a bit of class as a driver, and when he began in 2000, a long time ago, some people weren't even born when he started in F1.
I wasn't.
No. So, I mean, he came in as a 19-year-old, and he didn't qualify particularly good at Australia, but then the second race at Brazil, he scored a point due to disqualification. So he became the youngest driver to score a point in F1 at that point. And from there, it looked like he was going to be the next big thing. And then we had the agony of him never getting on the podium, waiting. It looked like it would never happen. 2004, it happens. Then it's the win. Waiting. 2006, it randomly happens on a wet day in Hungary. And then yes, Jensen's going to crack on now. 2007 happens. Honda produce an absolute dog of a car. And that's the downfall of Honda. But fortunately, Brawn GP arrives out of the ashes, and that championship win, it was class. Yes, he was in the best car at the start of the season, but he used it. He definitely wasn't in the best car at the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen what Brawn GP became, though.
Well, yes, the roots of Mercedes were being planted at that stage, and yes, it's fantastic to hear Jenson Button as well. I'm actually personally a little bit surprised. I thought you might have said Hamilton, but we might discuss.
I like Hamilton, but he's never been quite. He doesn't have quite the same. I don't want to say flair, but Button's just got something extra.
Yes, I think one of the criticisms, Hamilton, I think, is the GOAT, which is going to be controversial for some. I do think he is the greatest driver, probably, although my greatest driver of all time, we'll get to him later. But unfortunately, he also does a lot to wind people up, and I don't think the public particularly enjoy that side of it. But as a driver, absolutely fantastic.
In a far better way.
Yeah. We were chatting before we went online about Vettel, how 2012 everybody hated Vettel because he was winning all the time. Now he's everybody's favourite child, which is great to see. He's a fantastic humour. He's got great personality. Keeps himself very private as well, which is unusual for a Formula 1 driver. But all the power to him. For me, my favourite current driver is actually Fernando Alonso, which will please Sarlek, judging by his comment earlier. For me, Alonso has always had that something extra that a few drivers possess. He says a lot of absolute rubbish as well, and controversy has always followed him as well. Even back in the day, apparently he was going to sign for Ferrari until Flavio Briatore came along and said, "Come and drive for Renault, and I'll give you a race seat very quickly," and ousted Jenson Button out of that Renault seat. So, yes, but for me, Alonso, some of the stuff he did, especially when he was at Ferrari. I mean, 2012 comes to mind where he nearly won in that dog of a car. I think it's for about. If Alonso had scored maybe 10 more points in his career, he'd be a 5-time world champion. He's the great sort of misser of opportunity, but also the great self-saboteur as well. I think, which is is one of those things about him. I don't know your opinions on Alonso. You've missed his glory days, obviously, in 2005, 2006, because you were starting school. I
like Alonso. One of my favourite driver pairings is Button and Alonso when they were at McLaren together. That was just that car was horrendous. It was one of the worst cars I think we've seen in a very, very long time. Maybe rivaled by last year's Haas, but it's those two drivers together. Just they were brilliant. Alonso is one of the greatest drivers of all time. I think he's as you said, a couple more points here and there, and he probably would be a 5-time world champion. And the fact that he's still driving to the standard he is at his age is insane.
I think he gained a lot of credit actually when he left F1 as well, and he suddenly realised, actually, I'll go for the Triple Crown because I need to change the way I look at things. I need to go for a different thing. And he went to Indy, was immediately quick there. He went and he won. He won at Le Mans. He went to Daytona. I think most impressive was Daytona, when he went to Daytona and did the 24 hours there. And he did some wet driving there and just showed everyone. He was lapping like 2 seconds a lap quicker than anybody else in the field. So there's some sports car chat for those that were wishing to have some sports car chat. We'll mention sports cars at times because, with GT7 based game, we like cars. But Formula 1 is the thing that we're here to chat about. So, greatest driver of all time then, Wolfbane, relatively new to F1. Who's your greatest driver of all time then?
As you said, very relatively new to F1. If I were to base it off purely what I have seen, Hamilton. But if I were to base it off what I've heard, Jim Clark. The man could literally turn a car to do what he wanted. From what I've heard, he sounds like he was essentially a magician driving a car. It was... Yeah. I wish I could witness it.
You know what? There's a reason why Wolfbane and myself get on well, because we've gone for the same driver. which we didn't collaborate, but yeah, Jim Clark is my favourite driver of all time. Some will say Ayrton Senna. Comment in the chat as well, your favourite driver of all time. We'll chat about those as well that pop up. But yes, for me, Jim Clark, he won the Formula 1 World Championship in 1963. In 1964, he won the British Touring Car Championship while still driving in F1. And he won the 1965 Indy 500, and he won the Formula 1 World Championship in the same year. I mean, you said it all. He'd go rallying, he'd drive in touring cars, he'd basically drive anything fast. And yet he was this farmer from Scotland. Like, he was just... He was legendary for me. I think it was because... I think in a similar way to the way Ayrton is a legend as well, somebody that dies doing something that they love becomes immortal.
Yeah.
And I think Jim Clark became that. And there was a beautiful quote I had heard, and I wanted to get it right, and it's from Jackie Stewart, who obviously raced and was a teammate of Jim Clark and Graham Hill from the 60s. And he said, after Jim Clark was killed in the Formula 2 accident, if Jim Clark could be killed, they could be killed too, referring to any other driver. And that's what helped improve the safety of Formula 1 and motor racing in general. And it's the same with Ayrton, in a way. It's that shocked everybody to go, well, look, he can die. We need to sort this out. It's the same with Gilles Villeneuve. Yeah. All of these legends and everything, and you obviously, I mean, Jim Clark had been dead for nearly 20 years before I was born. Yet I've gone back, I've watched videos, Murray Walker's greatest Grand Prix drivers of all time videos and stuff, and with a year on since Murray passed as well. That
a year as of a couple of days ago, I think.
Exactly. And you grow up with these legends. Sterling Moss as well is up there for me. It's like Sterling Moss was just, again, brilliant driver who is this legendary figure because it grows in mystique, I think. And you look back at the 50s and the 60s and think, how on earth those guys just went and just drove those basically rockets, bathtubs with fuel around them.
Those cars were so much less safe than the cars these days. I mean, Grosjean's crash, even 5 years ago, that would have killed someone.
Oh, Grosjean's crash is...
The fact he survived that is phenomenal.
The
fact he's racing again.
Well, the fact he walked out of it straight away, I think he's just testament to everything that's been done in the safety of the sport. And he's as you say, he's racing in America and he's demonstrating he's still a quick driver. He's always been a quick driver. He just hasn't had that consistency for me as a top guy. But I mean, I remember when he was at Lotus with Kimi Räikkönen, and I think it was 2013 or was it 2012? 2012, end of 2012. He was the fastest guy out there at points. So, So Jim Clark. There you go, everybody. Jim Clark. The debate is over. Greatest of all time, Jim Clark. Come at us, comment in below, and tell us why we're wrong, because we're not.
Right, we're wrong.
I'm quite interested to hear who Matt's is. So hopefully next week when Matt joins us, hopefully, as I say, we might only last one episode. Everybody might have gone, but there's 6 people still here. So thank you very much, 6 people who are listening to us ramble. But so there we go. This is something that's more relatively new to Formula One, because for me, Formula One, you sort of cheer the sport on and you enjoy the races. It's the same with motorsport. But
yeah,
any favourite team? I mean, we're not Italian, so we're not Ferrari supporters or AlphaTauri supporters. So we're quite spoilt for choice, I suppose. But favourite team? Do you have one?
McLaren, without a doubt. I grew up with them winning the championship, and they have been my favourite team ever since.
Well, I think that is key, because my favourite team is Williams, and having grown up in the 90s, you'll know why.
Yeah.
Because Williams won everything until I started following Formula One properly in 1998, and then they won absolutely nothing apart from a few races since. So yeah, it's funny how as a youngster you always gravitate towards the winning car and the winning team. You just want that glory.
I just want McLaren to win again. It was beautiful seeing them get a 1-2 at Monza last year. That was. Yes. I was watching the Monza episode of Drive to Survive the other day, and while I am very well aware that Drive to Survive this season is not as accurate as previous seasons, they've made quite a few mistakes in it. Watching that episode almost made me cry.
Really?
It was so nice to see McLaren winning again. It was at the cost of Hamilton and Verstappen crashing into each other, but I don't care. It was just... It shows the work that Andreas Seidel and Zach Brown have done to the team over the last few years, because they have really brought it back from a dark age that I hope Williams are coming back from as well, actually.
Well, Williams have got the VW crew in. Rob on drums is here. Hello, Rob on drums, all the way from America, and he's saying, I can't stay for long, just wanted to say hi and go Haas. Oh, that's brilliant. Haas have actually got an American supporter as well. Yes. Don't believe all the stuff you see on Twitter. Americans do follow Formula One. Thank you, Rob. Rob on drums.
Yeah.
I am contractually obliged to tell you that each time I mention his name. So, then, shall we run through testing? I mean, testing is testing.
Yeah.
And basically, nobody really knows what is going on. Damon Hill put it best as saying, testing tells us nothing.
Yep. It tells you quite literally nothing.
So here we go, blindly into our predictions maybe for the race 1 at Bahrain in a few days' time. It's going to be a hard one to predict because of all the changes in the aero packages. We won't go into those, but I mean, the cars look fantastic. The cars do look really good.
They do. They look... It really looks like F1 has stepped into a new era. They look so much more aggressive than the last couple of... I mean, there's also the whole Ferrari and then Mercedes side pods, with Ferrari having absolutely massive side pods and Mercedes having none at all. It shows what the regulations do, and it also shows how much leniency there is in them. Because we look at the regulations and we're like, these are really, really strict, and the cars are all going to look the same, and then they all look different. I mean, sure, if you put them all in the same livery, they probably look relatively similar, and that's because they're all based off the same base model. It's... yeah.
I think there's more variety than we could have ever hoped for with these new regulations. As you say, they're more restrictive than ever before, and I know the race podcast were talking about this in the winter, saying that they were scared that we'd end up with a spec series, and we clearly haven't ended up with one because you've got Aston Martin with their super long side pods, and as you say, Mercedes have none at all, apart from the regulatory ones for the crash structure, it would seem. And the Ferrari ones confuse me, to be honest. I'm going to be controversial and say I don't think that car is half as good looking as people think it is. I think the livery does a lot for that car. I think if you put it in a Haas livery, I think it would look awful.
Yeah, I mean, the Haas livery doesn't do many favours.
No.
To anyone, really. No, it's not a great looking car. The Ripped Energy Haas was kind of cool, but I preferred the grey and white Haas. I did like their original livery.
And Rob on drums. It did actually, of the early 2010 Saubers that Perez and Kobayashi were driving. Rob on drums saying he's been a Haas fan from day one, and he's happy miss. Oh, he misses Esteban's unibrow though. Oh, Esteban Gutierrez. There's a name you don't hear very often anymore. I don't know what's happened to him, to be honest. I think he's maybe ended up in WEC, but I'm not sure.
That's where most F1 rejects end up. They all tend to end up somewhere.
Some great missed opportunities in WEC as well, that never made it into F1, which is a shame.
Yeah.
But
recent years, F1 rejects have been ending up in Formula E.
Well, yes, quite a few are there
already.
So let's have a look at these teams a bit closer, because we've mentioned Ferrari, we've mentioned bits of Mercedes as well with their side pods. Williams. They've had a bit of a tricky end to the testing. The last 2 days were plagued with fires. Albon jokingly saying that the team was struggling to heat up their rears, so decided to go a bit extreme. What are you thinking about Williams? Where would you place them in your expert opinion that you have as
in my
Formula
expert
X?
opinion, of course.
Yes, it's Formula X champion.
I mean, as we've said, the testing says absolutely nothing about what the cars are, and hell, the cars might be in a completely different place after round one than they are at the end of the season. It's honestly could be completely different anywhere. I reckon Williams will be bridge to the midfield if they can get these overheating issues sorted. They've made a lot of progress in the last couple of years, and I think while the regulation change makes things very uncertain, I think they've still got a potential to have made quite a bit of progress. It's difficult to say, as you said.
The Williams are a tricky team because immediately when that car came out, it looked like, oh, they've gone the wrong way with this zero sort of side pod style. But then Mercedes have copied Williams. There you go. Let's be controversial. But yeah, hopefully Williams are plugging the gap to the midfield. It's going to be interesting to see how Alex Albon fares. I think we'll definitely see if Nicholas Latifi, I think, had a raw deal because he had Russell as his teammate. But
I think everyone knew that. Latifi isn't a bad driver.
He's not, and
Russell's just phenomenal.
Yes,
certainly was in that Williams. We'll see if he is.
Well,
in the Mercedes.
So Flashman has said Williams is his favourite team purely because Sir Frank Williams was from his hometown. Oh, fantastic. And Pat has also commented about Gutierrez, saying, wasn't Gutierrez more remembered for his accident with Alonso in Melbourne more than anything else during his time with Haas? So that was when Gutierrez was with Sauber, and Alonso spectacularly crashed in the Turn 3 gravel trap where the car just ripped itself to pieces. If you haven't seen that accident, Google it, go on YouTube, because how Alonso walks out of that accident, it's just like it's a plane crash, is that accident. So thank you, Pat. Brilliant memory as well for Gutierrez.
About that incident. You're reminded me about that.
There you go. Thank you, Pat. It's why we like the comments, because they come in. They bring us memories of stuff we maybe have overlooked. So yeah, Williams, I think we're kind of saying midfieldy. Tiny Terror's here. Williams is my local team. Always supported them. Fantastic. Yeah. So, they're your local. So we kind of know where you're based then. Secret identity's even more revealed. I'll reveal the team that my granddad used to live near the team owner, and would hear cars being built in the garage as well. So I will reveal that team as we approach them, because they still exist on F1. So let's go up the grid. Alfa Romeo, Sauber. Not the best start, shall we say, to testing at Barcelona, where they struggled to get the car out, but I think they've got a bit better. Got Bottas, obviously, and Zhao as well. First Chinese driver in Formula 1. He's going to win Rookie of the Season as well. So, yeah. What are you thinking about Alfa Romeo? I mean, they've got a star driver there in...
I always think fairly highly of Alfa Romeo. I have a bit of a soft spot for Alfa Romeo and Sauber, as they used to be. I don't know if they're Alfa Romeo or they're Alfa Romeo Sauber or what they are these days.
Well, there's still Sauber Engineering. They are. It's just a branding job. So yeah.
I reckon they'll be very close to Williams again. I think Williams will be better than them, but not much. I think Zhou will take a few races to get into it. I think it'll be Bottas against both Williams for a while. But I reckon he'll get there. He's showing some brilliant pace in Formula 2. And well, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what the rookie can do. It'll be very interesting. We've had some phenomenal rookies in recent years. I mean, yeah.
We had one in the number 9 car last year who was spectacular at times. I've never seen a car spin so much. Yeah, Zhao for me has always been a slow burner from what I can tell from his junior career. He seems to build and build and build, and he'll be a decent peddler, I think. I'm not expecting any spectacle from him or anything. No, but he's probably more of a Latifi sort of level, decent driver who, given machinery, probably will do a good job. I think he's in that level.
And I think Alfa Romeo is a brilliant chance for Bottas to show what he can do, because he's been driving with arguably one of the greatest drivers of all time.
Yes, and
he's been holding his own. Obviously, last season he didn't really, but in previous seasons he's been kind of there or thereabouts, but never been able to quite get the edge on Hamilton for more than a couple races.
There's only so much of being destroyed by one of the greatest of all times I think any man could take. I'm impressed with how long he stayed there. Yes, I think it definitely, his motivation coming back each time is admirable, but yes, unfortunately, just not quite on that World Championship level that Hamilton is on.
He was a very good number 2 driver for Hamilton for a long time.
Yes, sort of perfect.
And even last season as well.
Yeah,
because they did win the constructors last season. Now I'm doubting myself. Mercedes did win the constructors last season, didn't they? They did. Yes, okay,
they did win the constructors. So yeah, he's a pretty good driver. But yeah, we'll move away from Alfa Romeo and Sauber and go to the other Alfa team, AlphaTauri, who used to be Minardi years and years ago. Lovely Minardi. And then were saved by Red Bull, and now they are AlphaTauri. They've got Pierre Gasly as their star driver and Yuki Tsunoda, who I think it's got to be a big year for Tsunoda. He's basically got to deliver.
Yeah. If he's not on pace with Gasly for a long time, and he's not consistently there, he's gone. Gasly was I think, outdriving the car last season. He was up there fighting with the McLarens and the Ferraris. He just didn't have the teammate to back him up.
Yeah, that car was the third fastest car on the grid, but unfortunately he only had one driver in it.
It was the third fastest car on grid at times, I think. Some tracks some tracks the McLaren was quicker. The Ferrari, I think, was the most consistent car of the three over the entire season. It'll certainly be interesting to see what Tsunoda do. I think it's good that they kept their driver lineup from last season. Red Bull have a bit of a habit of being a bit cutthroat with their young drivers.
They do.
It'll be interesting to see what Tsunoda can do, and driving under the number 22 as well.
Well, yes, Jenson Button fan as well, wasn't he? Back in the day. It's going to be interesting there because they've got some good Red Bull junior drivers as well coming up. I think Liam Lawson is the next big thing in that program. I really like what I saw of him last season, not just because of the DTM stuff, but actually what he was doing in Formula 2. He's got some pressure to keep that seat, I think, Tsunoda. He is quick enough. We saw it at Abu Dhabi in the final race. He finished fourth in all that chaos.
We saw his pace grow over the entire season. It was he really grew as a driver over the season. I think Red Bull will either be looking for him to be on pace with Gasly or to see that improvement again to a point where he is with Gasly for a few races at the end of the season where they're like, okay, maybe we can keep this guy around for another year. And maybe they'll keep him. Maybe. So,
maybe.
It's a big maybe in that particular situation because,
I think what surprised me last season was when he arrived in Formula 1, he wasn't fit enough. He didn't seem to have the healthy habits required to be a Formula 1 driver. And I was just very shocked. Oh, Chris Boo is in the chat. Good evening, guys, he says. Good evening, Chris Boo. Nice for you to join us. One of our Porsche Cup drivers and also a touring car driver previously as well. So next on my little list of teams is Alpine, El Plan. Is El Plan going to be a winning, or is El Plan going to be probably staying about 5th and 6th in the championship? And Alonso...
Yeah, they're going to be very in the middle of the field. I think Ocon will give Alonso a good fight again this season. It's a really interesting driver pairing because obviously Alonso is this in some people's eyes, and we said it earlier, he's a brilliant driver. Can Ocon keep up with him? Yes, he proved so last season. The two were separated by 7 points. Ocon's race at Hungary he won, didn't he?
Yes.
That was quite a race. That's it.
That was a great race, which I believe...
Points for Williams, podium for Ocon and Vettel, and Hamilton got Alonso at the end, I think, and finished third? I can't remember the full race results for that.
I think Hamilton finished third. Because I'm thinking. Hold on, no, because Vettel got disqualified, didn't he? So
he did, didn't he?
Yeah. So there we go. So a bit of heartbreak. Yes. Talking of Vettel getting disqualified, let's go to Aston Martin. Aston Martin, I found these really tricky to place actually on the testing column. In fact, in my original notes, I haven't even written Aston Martin down. So it's a good job we mentioned Vettel, otherwise Aston Martin would not get mentioned, and Pat would be very angry at us, the team principal.
You're forgetting Aston Martin again.
Yes, so Aston Martin. Pat is happy in the chat. Woo, says Pat. This is what he's come for, the team principal in Formula X, also the champion. Aston Martin too. I mean, I'm saying this, the final results of Formula X haven't been clarified, so, there could be some dramatic changes happening with a season disqualification for Wolfbane, but we'll see. Aston Martin then, where do you place them? Lance Stroll is in that other car, who again is a driver probably maligned for being there because of his dad, but has talent. You don't get podiums and pole positions by not being talented. So
again, he was 9 points off Vettel last season, so they were quite close. I think it's a very similar situation to Alpine. I think Alpine and Aston Martin are going to be fighting over the same spot on the grid again. I say again, they weren't really last season, but I think it's going to be. I think Aston Martin and Alpine will be the bridge to the midfield. Williams will be on the tail of that end. They'll be there or thereabouts occasionally. Yeah, Vettel obviously very well decorated driver. Stroll has proven himself to be a very good driver across the last few seasons. Everyone keeps saying, or certainly was saying for a very long time, that it's all Daddy's money that's getting him in the car. But I think he's there he deserves to be there more than some people did.
I mean, he's no Pedro Diniz, who you may not remember Pedro Diniz, but no, Pedro Diniz was absolutely shocking. 1995, I forget which team he was at in 95. 40, I think he was in. Or was that 96? Then he drove with Damon Hill at Arrows in 97. He went to Sauber in the end and kind of was respectable then. One of the most famous things Diniz ever did was the 1999 European Grand Prix. He barrel rolled at the start, and that's the race that Johnny Herbert won for Stewart. So that was Diniz.
I'm impressed he barrel rolled an F1 car.
Yes, he managed to crumple the roll hoop as well. So actually, it turns out at the end, actually, that one was very close to being an absolute disaster for a barrel roll of a Formula One car crash that was quite spectacular and quite comic at the time that happened. But it could have ended differently. So we did avoid that. But no, he's definitely no Diniz. Stroll is a difficult one, and
yeah,
he's there on merit, but I mean, there's better drivers on the grid, and
there are.
Fortunately, I mean, we're talking about one pay driver in a way, or one driver there because of his daddy. Let's go to a team where they've lost their sugar daddy, and they've lost their driver associated with that money, yes. And that is Haas. I mean, we might be very quick with Haas, but I've put them this far up the grid personally because I think Haas are going to be dark horses, especially with Kevin Magnussen coming back.
Magnussen's always been. He's never had the greatest luck with cars. I remember him joining McLaren alongside Button.
Got a podium in his first race.
He did, and then kind of didn't do anything else for the rest of the season.
No.
That was an interesting time at McLaren. I think Stroll? Haas is a very interesting team. They've had their first few seasons, they were consistently improving, and then they went to Rich Energy, and it all went wrong.
The curse of Rich Energy.
Last season was horrendous for them. It was not a good season for them.
But
did they score any points? They didn't score any points.
But they did admit they were literally doing no development on that car, and they had two rookies. One, Mick Schumacher, who think personally, Mick is going to be good this season. I mean, I was surprised how quick he was last year, because
he was quite quick, but he was struggling at times. But Mazepin did beat him on occasion.
He's a driver who always improves in his second season. I remember seeing Mick drive in Formula 3. It was his first Formula 3 race in 2016 or 2017 at Silverstone. Yeah. And he was near the back. And he did manage to loop it in front of us. Myself and Endurance Nut were sat at Club, and he managed to loop it in front of us. And it was a bit like, oh dear. That's Michael's son there. But then the season after, he won the championship. So And it's the same in Formula 2. He won the championship. So, this season, with Haas being one of the fastest teams in testing, he is winning the World Championship. There you go, I've said it.
I think you're right. I think they could be a dark horse this season. I think there's also a very high possibility they are off the back again.
It's going to go one or two ways. They're going to be great, or they're going to be absolutely rubbish.
Yeah, they're going to be kind of in that. I think the midfield's going to be quite tightly packed this season.
I think they're probably. I think the first few races, I think they'll be pushing points. I do think so.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, possibly.
But it is, as we said before, it is tricky to sort of predict this grid because we don't know what's quick and what's not, and everything kind of points one way, but we never know, and it's the same in any testing sort of session. Let's go to your boys then. McLaren, looking very nice, although I don't like that they've added more black to the livery in a personal point.
I do quite like the livery. I wasn't sure of it on the when they did the livery reveal, but I now I've seen it on track. I do like the livery.
It's a very, very nice car. Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo there. Great lineup.
Great lineup. Ricciardo's got COVID at the moment, which is interesting.
Yeah. Which, have you heard Piastri, who we actually haven't mentioned actually Alpine. Alpine's a tricky one because they've got Oscar Piastri, who is phenomenal in reserve. So, yeah, Piastri has been offered to McLaren to say, well, if you need him, there he is. Also, he can take all your plans with him, so we know what your car's doing. So great bit of play there by Alpine. Mika would be very proud of that sort of tactic, bringing those secrets from another team.
As former Alpine drivers, we would know.
Exactly. Alpine is where it's at. So, McLaren, what are your hopes? Obviously, you are a fan of McLaren, and you're going to be completely biased, so off you go.
I'm very, very biased, but I think they're going to do well. I think it's going to be another kind of tail end of the top three this season. I don't know if they're going to... The problem is we've only seen one car in testing. We've only seen Norris do 3 days of testing, so it's like, what can you really go off? I mean, that's just the entire testing as a whole, but they'll be around.
They looked good in Spain, they've had the braking issues, which hopefully is an easy fix.
Hopefully,
But with McLaren, I'm really hoping they are up there and they are fighting for podiums and the odd race win, but I don't know with them.
My hope is there is a 4-way battle for the constructors this season.
Let's go all the way. Let's have a 10-way battle for the constructors. Let's go crazy.
That might be a bit much.
That's what I always want. That's why Formula X is designed how it is. Everybody can win. There we go.
With someone winning 3 races in a season.
Yes, exactly. A 10-round season. I think McLaren, they're on that upward trajectory, as you said, with Zach Brown taking the helm, and was controversial. And Ron Dennis, I think his time, unfortunately, had passed. I mean, he'd been there since the early 80s, late 70s. He'd been at McLaren. I think what really made it peak Ron was when they changed the livery from the silver cars of the 2010s, and they brought out that horrible black and red combination.
Controversially, I quite liked that livery.
And, well, Ron would be proud of you. Ron is... I've read Adrian Newey's book of when he went to McLaren and how he obviously is a creative. He likes things to be very nice, and everything at McLaren was just sterile. He just said, if you can imagine McLaren with Ron Dennis, that's exactly what the office was like. But Zach Brown's brought in a better culture by the sound of it, apart from maybe the chocolate orange fiasco a few years ago when he's awkward. But yeah, they're on an upward trajectory, and
Zach Brown and Andreas Seidel have done wonders for the team in the last couple of years. They've done. I think they're a couple of years ahead of where Williams will be, because I think Doroton taking over Williams is kind of going to do the same thing.
It would be great to see.
It would be great to see.
It would be great to see with that, and we're positive about McLaren then. Positive about McLaren, probably fourth on the grid.
I think fourth is a fairly safe guess. I think they'll have the pace to challenge for wins at some tracks, but I don't think they'll be consistently up there as much as the other three teams.
So, the last three teams we've got are Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull, and I put them in this order because of testing. So I put Mercedes next, and obviously those side pods are the thing that everybody's talking about, but you've got George Russell there as well, and Lewis Hamilton. Obviously, lost out on the World Championship last season. We won't talk about that too much. What are your predictions for Mercedes this year? Is it going to be more of the same? Because, I mean, they're a well-run machine by Toto Wolff standards.
They're a very well-run machine.
Or is it going to crash and burn like everybody wants to see these champions?
I hope they don't crash and burn, because I don't like seeing any teams crash and burn. I think Mercedes are going to be... Having said there's going to be a top three fight, I think Mercedes are going to be closer to McLaren than they are to the other two. I don't... Just having a look at from testing, they're kind of there-ish, but not really. I don't think this is really a question, but it could be. I think they have the best driver lineup on the grid by a mile and a half. I think if their drivers can make the car work, they could be very dangerous. If that car is as good as people want it to be, and some people don't want it to be. I don't think Mercedes will finish lower than fourth, and I think third is fairly likely for Mercedes. I don't think they'll win this season.
No, I think podiums definitely first race. I think they're in that fight, and they will win races. George Russell is going to win a race this season. I don't think it's controversial to say that.
I don't think so. I mean, Leclerc still hasn't won at Monaco yet, but you know.
Well, he needs to stop crashing into barriers. But it's tricky, really, because everything that's coming out of Mercedes, which Mercedes are good at downplaying themselves in testing and saying they're in trouble.
They are very, very good.
But trackside as well, a lot of reporters are saying that Mercedes doesn't look as good. Porpoising seems to be an issue for it. And
they don't look comfortable, and that could just be them downplaying it. But I don't think they downplay it to the level of how uncomfortable they look with that car.
Oh, Flashman's come up with a fantastic question. Here we go. Let's get into this. This is what this is about. This is why we're live. Have you seen the question? Russell or Hamilton for Mercedes number one? Who wins out of those two then? Wolfbane, I'll let you go first.
That's a very difficult question. I'm going to say Russell. I think Russell's going to have the edge on Hamilton to begin with. I think, and this is a very, very much a stab in the dark. I think because Russell is much younger, he'll get used to the car quicker. He'll kind of, I feel like he may. I feel like he may understand the capabilities of the car better because he's been driving that Williams for the last 3 seasons. And I think, certainly for the first part of the season, I think Russell will have the edge. Whether he has the edge over the whole season, I'm not certain, but I'm going to give Russell my vote.
Going for Russell. There you go, Flashman. So Wolfbane's gone for Russell. I want to say Russell. I really do. But it's Lewis Hamilton. in the other car. I think this lineup is absolutely fascinating because I think you've got two possible all-time greats together. And it's a bit like having Clark and Hill together back in the 60s. Flashman's coming and he's saying he's agreeing with you, actually. He's saying Russell. So this has got people talking. This is what it's about. This is what it's all about. People talking to each other and being civil as well in the comments. We've got Russell there, brand new driver, but I just think Hamilton, he's irked, but I think he's got 2 seasons left in him, and he wants to go out on top. So Flashman saying, in my opinion, Russell looked more comfortable in testing. Pat is saying Lewis has been there longer. I think that to have George as team's number 1, he will have to prove he's better first. So testing and racing are different. Mika's come in as well. Some F1 trivia for you. Oh, Mika, you'll like some F1 trivia. We've got something coming up right at the end. We've got 2 more teams to discuss. Did you know Arrows was named with the initials of the surnames of the founders? I think I have read that somewhere, but that's a great bit of trivia for Mika. Fantastic. Final 2 then. We've got Ferrari and Red Bull. So let's go for Ferrari. We've talked about their big side pods. We've got Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, who I've always loved. Before it was cool to love him. Yeah.
I'm going to be bold and say I think Ferrari are going to win this season. But I do not think Ferrari are going to win the drivers this season because they are not a team that's... They're a team that is built to win. And that is all they will want to do. But I do not think they will support their drivers to win. I think it's been too long since they've had a driver in a position to win a championship. I don't think one of their drivers will win the championship this season. But I think they have a very solid shot at the Constructors.
So Constructors champions are Ferrari. So you heard it here first from Wolfbane. I'm going for driver's title as well for Ferrari. But controversially, I'm going to go for Sainz. I think Carlos Sainz is just a little bit more rounded than Charles. I think Charles has the speed over 1 lap, but I think Carlos... I was expecting Carlos to do good things last season at Ferrari, and he did even better
last season.
He did.
Yeah.
And he did even better than I expected him to do. And I'm a big fan of Carlos. I honestly felt they should have signed Carlos before they signed Charles at the time.
Yeah.
But I can't prove that. I was literally driving in my car, talking at stuff, telling them they should sign Sainz rather than him go to Renault. But that was all a bad thing. But yeah, I think Sainz for the Drivers' Championship. I mean, his dad was pretty good at rallying, so we could have back-to-back drivers winning the championship who are related to world champions. Not world champions. Jos didn't win a world championship.
Teammates as well back at Toro Rosso.
Former teammates as well. Exactly. That lineup is insane. Looking back at that. So. Toro Rosso, let's go to the big boys then. Red Bull at the front, Perez, and obviously our current champion Verstappen. I'm guessing then you're going to say Verstappen for the title.
As much as I don't want to say it, I think so. I think Verstappen is going to have the edge. I think out of all of the top 4 teams, the pace difference between Verstappen and Perez is big enough that there is a clear number 1 and 2 driver. I think Pat is right, where Russell will have to prove himself at Mercedes. There won't consistently be one of them P3. It will be one or the other in front. I think Verstappen will wipe the floor with Perez again, as much as I love Perez. I don't want to say Verstappen for champion. Don't like Verstappen.
Do not like, but why not?
I just find him a bit arrogant. Hamilton is also very arrogant, but he's arrogant in a very different way. Verstappen is aggressively arrogant. Hamilton is passively arrogant.
Yes, I think that's probably the best way. I think Verstappen does put his car in positions where we've seen it already. Big accidents will happen, and they have happened.
I think Monza last season was a clear example of Verstappen making a irresponsible decision. I don't think going around the outside of someone in the chicane is ever really going to work, especially someone who's just come out of the pits. No. It's
yeah, some of the he does put himself in the position. I mean, cops as well. We had all of that and the controversy with that and everything. And both drivers. I mean, we've had Brazil.
Yeah.
When they both went off there, Verstappen made sure that Hamilton went off. And Saudi Arabia too. It's quite tricky. I mean, you're going for a championship, and it is the World Championship and everything. And
it is one of the most illustrious titles in
lustful,
possibly all of sport. No. In possibly all of sport, not just motorsport. There are always going to be emotions involved, and I think Verstappen is too emotionally driven, and to a point Hamilton as well. He hasn't really had anyone to fight him, and last season he was... I mean, the last person we've seen really fighting him was Vettel a few seasons ago, but that was like the odd race here and there. It wasn't really... Ferrari are going to challenge for the championship, except when they had that illegal engine.
We'll never know what happened with that Ferrari engine, but clearly something bad was going on there. Yep. Right. So that is our comprehensive review of the season. So Verstappen and Ferrari for Wolfbane. Who do you think is going to win at Bahrain then?
Oh, Bahrain. I think it's going to be Russell. Ooh. I want it to be Russell because he didn't win that last time. I think Mercedes. I think you're right. I think Mercedes are going to be all right for the first few rounds. I think Bahrain, particularly, they've always been quite good around Bahrain.
Very good. I've gone for Sainz and Ferrari for the championship. I'm going to go for Leclerc for Bahrain because he nearly won it in 2019, but for some problems with his car. So I'm going to go for that. Final stewards report bits and pieces are getting sorted out as well as we are talking. So that's exciting. But the excitement doesn't stop there because this is our final little bit. We're going to have a little quiz, dear listener.
Oh, no.
And fortunately, I've written the quiz, so I am not answering these questions. You can answer the questions in the comments. Wolfbane is going to have a go at this, and we might see. I mean, with Matt next week, we might do a head-to-head quiz. That might be interesting.
Oh God, Matt would definitely beat me.
So we'll see. But if you want to take part in the quiz, comment below. I'm going to ask. I nearly went real name there. I'm going to ask Wolfbane not to. Secret identity nearly revealed.
Yep.
No. I'm going to ask Wolfbane not to look at the comments, just in case the answer crops up. So, here you go. Question 1. You'll be pleased to know, Wolfbane, all of these have a theme. The theme is the Bahrain or the Sakir circuit, because one of these questions relates to...
I do like that circuit.
So, here we go. Question number 1. Who won the first Bahrain Grand Prix?
Oh, good lord. I'm going to make a random guess, because I can't remember when the first Bahrain Grand Prix was, and say Vettel.
Oh, no. Vettel wasn't in Formula 1. It was 2004. So if I say 2004, who do you think it was?
Alonso.
No, it was Michael Schumacher in that F2004 all-dominant Ferrari. He beat Barrichello and Jenson Button in the BAR. Question number 2. So great start there from Wolfbane.
This is a phenomenal start.
Question number 2. Name. Oh, Pat went for Alonso as well. So Pat went for Alonso in the comments. Not alone in thinking that. Name. Alonso did win it in 2005. So that's possibly where that memory is coming from. Name one of the firsts that happened in the 2010 Bahrain Grand Prix.
One of the firsts.
Yeah, so you can have
the first thing that's ever happened.
Yes.
Oh god, that's a.
There's 3 options I'll give you for that. So you can pick one of those.
I'm going to go really out there here. Did it rain?
Oh, that's a good question. And no, I don't think it rained.
Damn it.
So, you could either have... I'll just wait to see if anyone gets it in the comments. So, name one of the first things that happened in the 2010 race. So, it was the first race that refueling was banned. Again. Okay. But that isn't the first time that had happened. Is this an Alonso thing again, Mika says? Mika, you are correct. Alonso won his first race for Ferrari. He also set fastest lap. But what I was actually thinking when I set this question up was the track layout. It was the long track layout that they used only once. The wiggly bit in the middle that was really horrible. And nobody liked it, so they never used it again. So instead of the fast sweeping left-right in the middle of the sector, they turned left into a tight left-right chicane, and it was just a procession.
Oh, that looks horrible.
It was not a very good layout and has never been seen again. So my final question, it's not Alonso related. I do realise that quite a lot of this is Alonso related. Name the podium at the 2020 Sakhir Grand Prix.
2020?
The 2020, so that was the short layout.
Yeah.
So it had a very famous winner.
Who won that race? That was Perez that won the race.
He did. Ding!
That was Perez's win. Neither Mercedes finished on the podium, because that was the one Russell could have won but didn't.
Russell could have won it, and his team gave him 2 opportunities where they went, no, you can't win today.
Yeah. Ocon?
Ocon was on the podium as well. He finished 3rd.
Stroll.
Oh my word. You have got all 3 right. It was Perez, Stroll, and Ocon.
Oh my god. Wow.
Absolutely fantastic. So, actually, Ocon came 2nd, because Ocon, I've just realised I was thinking Ocon was still driving for Racing Point, but he was driving for Renault at the time. And Stroll was there for Racing Point as well. So, first was Perez, Ocon was 2nd, and Stroll in 3rd. Well done, Wolfbane. Well done, listener, as well, if you have got any of those. If you want to ask any questions, if you have any opinions that you wish to share, let us know. In Discord, direct messages, anything. If you enjoyed this as well, give it a like, give it a share. I mean, this is just random stuff that literally I came up with on, I think it was Sunday night, was it? That I said we might try this. I think
it was Sunday night. Yeah, let's have a look.
Yeah, so we've just gone over an hour, which that's not bad really, because we've done an introduction, we've done a bit of fun. You now know roughly what we are. There's just one last thing to mention, and that is fantasygp.com. We are not brought to you by fantasygp.com, but maybe in the future we will be. Plug. FantasyGP.com is a fantasy league for Formula 1 fans. You pick 3 drivers, you pick 3 teams, they form your team, and there is a league happening here at SNL. We are joining up with Matt Psycho's league as well. Matt Psycho actually won it overall a few years ago, which is unbelievable. So you're going against not only a phenomenal racer, but also a phenomenal F1 predictor, man. I mean, he should have been on this podcast. Then people would actually know what's going to happen this weekend. You pick 3 drivers, you pick 3 teams, and the code to join our league. So you go on fantasygp.com, and then you enter the code 815-45724, and then you can join our league. There's a few people already in there as it stands, and you pick those 3 teams and those 3 cars as well. And you have until the Bahrain Grand Prix. Wolfbane's put it nicely in the chat there for everybody as well. Fantastic, thank you very much, Wolfbane. That's right. Very professional there. Anyway, let's see what the Bahrain Grand Prix does this weekend. Hopefully we will have a cracking race to talk about next week. We'll chat some more next week. And yeah, join us live. Hopefully post-race every week that there's a race. We hope. We'll see how this goes. It's all brand new. And this officially kind of is our first SNL video on Gran Turismo 7, because I've got that as our little background on the video. So, you know, let's talk about Gran Turismo 7 by talking F1. So there we go. Anyway, thank you very much, Wolfbane, for joining me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
And thank you very much, everybody, for listening, and good night.